Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Jocelyn. Krishna. So yesterday I spent some time with a devotee. There's different kinds of devotees. Some devotees have had formal initiation from a spiritual master, and others have accepted a spiritual master within their heart, and they're surrendering like that. They haven't taken like a formal vow. There's a little bit of a difference, especially like, we'll say like with Prabhupada's disciples. They've taken a formal vow. Prabhupada has given them japa beads, and they've promised to chant a certain number of rounds and follow regulative principles. So that is a relationship, a formal relationship. It's like getting married. A formal relationship with the spiritual master. So, but others, they're hearing Prabhupada's books, they've accepted Prabhupada's teachings, and they're also following. But that element of a formal connection, that part isn't there. It's just the way it is. There are representatives within the movement who can bring someone to that point of taking a formal vow. That can be done. But I was spending time with a devotee yesterday that has taken that formal vow. It's one of my god sisters. And she's not following, okay? Not chanting 16 rounds like she promised her spiritual master. She's not doing it. And I don't know about regulative principles. I don't even want to go there. But I know for sure not chanting the prescribed number of rounds. So it's not just a rule or a regulation. It's a relationship. It's like a marriage vow. It's a relationship. And you've taken a vow. It's not an easy thing to do, living out in the world and having to maybe work or have a family. It's not an easy thing to do because you have to find the time for it, for one thing. And then also, when you're engaged in all these other things, it's like your mind is spinning about them. You know, I gotta pay the rent, and the roof's leaking, and my kid needs new shoes, and you know, all that stuff's floating around in your brain. So it's not so easy. Those devotees who are either students or pujaris or teachers who live in a temple, it's a little, their day is arranged in such a way that it's more conducive for chanting. It's all around the deity and very scheduled. So People find themselves, devotees find themselves in different situations, but that vow stays. If someone has accepted that formal connection with a spiritual master, they've accepted that. That's their vow. So the devotee I was talking with yesterday, they're not following. For one reason or another, it's difficult. But what's happened, I can see, is that they're just finding fault with everyone else. They're not following. They promised the spiritual master, and that's the only thing Prabhupada ever asked any of his disciples to do, formally like that, is to chant a certain number of rounds, 16, follow 4 regulative principles. That's the only thing anyone ever promised when they accepted initiation, Prabhupada. That was the only thing. So the way the devotee's thinking is, the movement's not doing this, the movement's not doing that. They're not doing this, they're not doing that. No, you're not chanting 16 rounds and following 4 regular principles. That's why you're seeing everything that everybody else isn't doing. If you would keep your vow to your spiritual master, remain faithful and surrendered, and do the 2 things, the only 2 things he ever asked anybody to do. If you would just do that, you'd become blissful. And instead of seeing what the movement isn't doing, you'd see what the movement is doing. So the Maya is very tricky, and it's all about relationship. Relationship with Krishna, relationship with the spiritual master, relationship with other devotees. And if any of those particular relationships become weakened, then the way we see things starts to go off kilter. It's a great science. Hare Krishna. So I can say this because I struggle with it every day. Not every day, I struggle with it every minute. Jocelyn says, yes, I did that always. Did what? Like, look at things that weren't right. This is no good, that's no good. You fell into that trap. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Chant always. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. I'm listening while cooking for dinner. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Chanting I came online because trying to see different ways that I can keep this vow to Prabhupada, the 16 rounds. How to actually keep that. And I'm thinking this might help. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I don't have so much association for chanting. There isn't like a whole lot of people around me, everybody chanting. So I'm thinking if I go online like this, it might help me to keep this promise to Prabhupada. Hey Mahabhagavat, how do you go? We were just talking about the importance and the significance and what it really means to have that initiation vow and then keep it 16 rounds and 4 regulative principles. What I see is devotees sometimes they're not chanting 16 rounds, and who knows what's going on with the regulative principles. We don't know, because everybody's in their own little home. But it's not just a rule, like, oh, now I'm on a spontaneous platform. I don't need all those rules. I don't need to chant numerical strength. That was just something to get me to this point of ecstatic love for Krishna. And no. It's not just rules. It's a relationship with the spiritual master. It's a relationship. And then the other thing I see is, as I was talking with a devotee yesterday, that I know they're not chanting. This is, one of our god sisters. I know they're not chanting. They're struggling, but they're just not chanting. So what's happened is they're finding fault with everyone else. They're not keeping their promise to Prabhupada for one reason or another. They're struggling. But what's happened is they're just finding fault with everybody else. The movement's not doing this. The movement's not doing that. This is no good. That's no good. No. The reason you're miserable and depressed and things aren't working and is because you need to chant those 16 rounds. That's your relationship. That's your lifeline. That's the only thing he ever asked us to do. Anyone. Never mind big buildings. Never mind big programs. Never mind big following. Never mind all of that. The only thing, I'm like nobody. And if I can do it, I can understand this simple principle that if we do that, then we become blissful. We won't see what isn't happening. We'll see what is happening. Become ecstatic. Hare Krishna and Jocelyn, she puts up the mantra here. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. She's cooking dinner in the Philippines. She's chanting Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. But it's not just this one devotee that I spent time with yesterday. It's a lot of the older disciples. It may be complicated by age too. Age, it may be complicating things. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. The service now, especially for us older ones who, we're getting through the day. I don't know about you, but I'm getting through the day. It's not big programs. It's not big this, big that, management, organize. It's not that. Now is the time to take the chanting seriously, especially the 16 rounds and the 4 regulative principles. and hear and chant. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Simplify, simplify, simplify. But that's a relationship with Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. It's the only thing he ever asked me to do, really, directly. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. It's like that old thing about the spiritual master asks for water. See, all of these little old sayings, they take on newer and newer light. They get newer and newer light. And we used to hear, spiritual master asks for water. Oh, I'll bring him milk. He'd like milk better. No, he asked for water. The spiritual master asked for 16 rounds and 4 regular principles. Oh, but I'll bring him a big this or a big that, and I'll do a big whatchamacallit, and make a big hoo-ha and lots of money, and that's all right. We can use it. Spiritual master, that's all right, thank you, we can use it. But I really just asked you to chant a certain number of rounds and follow regular principles. And if you're not doing that, then what's the use of all the other stuff? Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. And avoid the offenses to the holy name. Inattentive. Sinful activity on the strength of chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Offending the Vaishnavas, pure devotees. The devotees have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna. There's a bunch of other offenses in there too. Hare Krishna, Krishna. I can't remember them because most likely I'm committing all of them. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. No, but then you're chanting, Krishna's dancing on your tongue. Hare Krishna, Krishna. And where there's Krishna, there's all the incarnations, there's all the... everything. Everything's in Krishna. He's dancing on your tongue. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I thought this would help since they don't have like a whole lot of association around me. Everybody chanting Hare Krishna. I'm kind of solitary here. So I thought this would help if I came online a little bit, chanted a little bit, and maybe shared some things as they came up. So I'm going to continue chanting in Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.